They say Mother's Day is supposed to be peaceful, full of flowers, cards, and brunches with soft music and forced smiles. But this year, it came with a box and a whisper that changed everything. "Don't open it, Jess," my husband muttered, his eyes locked on the package like it might detonate. I blinked at him, confused. "Why not?" He leaned closer, voice barely audible. "Can't you see?" That's when I saw the corner of the envelope peeking out from inside the box, the handwriting on it unmistakably mine, from over 3 decades ago. My heart dropped. Before I could ask another question, the doorbell rang. 10 minutes later, the police were in my living room. But let me take you back to just before the chaos. You need to understand what led to this, to betrayal so intimate it nearly shattered my soul. Hi, I'm Jessica, 66, retired nurse, wife to William for 43 years, and mother to Samantha, our only daughter, who used to braid my hair while I read her fairy tales and now calls only when she needs money. This story is real. It's painful, but I'm telling it because someone out there needs to hear it. And before we go any further, let me just say, if stories like this strike a chord, please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps more than you know, and you won't miss any of the powerful stories we share here on Revenge with Becky. Now, back to the moment it all started to fall apart. The morning began with quiet hope. I was making lemon tea, the good kind with honeycomb bits floating in the cup, when Samantha called. "Hey, Mom! Happy Mother's Day! Can you be home around noon? I'm having something delivered to you." My heart warmed. A gift? From her? It had been years since she gave me anything without expecting something back. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll be here." William raised an eyebrow from behind his newspaper. "What does she want this time?" I swatted his arm lightly. "Be nice." But he wasn't wrong. Samantha's pattern was like clockwork. Unexpected sweetness, followed by unbearable tension and a financial request wrapped in guilt. By noon, a sleek black car pulled into our driveway. The driver handed me a small but heavy gift box, tied in champagne-colored ribbon. I held it to my chest for a moment, smiling despite myself. It felt like holding hope again. That's when William's face changed. He took one look at the box, and his eyes sharpened. "Jess," he said slowly, "don't open it." "What?" "Don't open it." The way he said it, low, shaking, my stomach clenched. I turned the box slightly in my hands, and that's when I saw it. Tucked beneath the ribbon, nearly invisible, was an envelope. The handwriting on it was mine. Not recent. Not even from a few years ago. No. That handwriting was from a letter I wrote 31 years ago. A letter I had sealed and hidden in the attic, buried in a place no one, not even William, knew existed. I dropped the box like it burned me. "Where did she get this?" I whispered. William's face turned pale. "I thought you destroyed that letter." "I didn't. I hid it. How would Samantha know where to look?" He stared at me, mouth opening and closing like he wanted to say more. But before he could answer, the doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't a delivery. It was 2 officers with grim expressions and an envelope of their own. "Mrs. Hughes," one of them asked, "we'd like to speak with you about the contents of this package." 3 days earlier, the house had been tense. Samantha and her husband, Peter, had dropped by unannounced. Their visits were rarely casual and never comfortable. "I need you to give us part of the inheritance now, Mom," Samantha had said bluntly, crossing her arms over her expensive blouse. Peter smirked beside her on our cream leather sofa, sneakers propped carelessly on my coffee table. "It's not like you're using it, and we're in serious trouble." "Trouble?" I asked. "Is this about the crypto thing again? Or the restaurant idea?" Samantha's face flushed. "Why do you always do that? Make it sound like we're failures." "I never said that," I replied gently. "But, sweetie, this isn't the first time." William said nothing. He'd learned that silence stings more than scolding. but I saw the way his hands clenched beneath the armrest. "Mom," Samantha said, softer now, "it's not like we want all of it. Just a few thousand. To help. Please." I looked at her. Truly looked at her. Her lashes curled perfectly over eyes that used to light up when she danced in the kitchen with me. But now those eyes only lit up when she saw dollar signs. "I can't," I said. "And I won't." Her face hardened. "So we mean nothing to you." "That's it." Peter stood. "We should go. Come on, babe. Let's leave the rich people to rot in their museum." And with that, they stormed out. I thought that would be the end of it. But then came the box. Back in the living room, I sat across from the officers. William remained silent beside me, his hand resting on mine. "We received a report that this box may contain stolen materials," one officer said. "And a confession." I frowned. "Confession." The officer slid the envelope toward me. "Your handwriting, correct?" It was. My hands trembled as I unfolded the yellowed paper. It began, "To Samantha, if you're reading this, it means you found what I swore to hide. I never wanted this to reach you unless—" The rest of the words blurred as tears welled in my eyes. That letter was never meant to be found. And yet somehow my daughter had found it, had read it, had weaponized it. I wish I could say I had answers then. But all I had was grief. Grief for what had once been a close mother-daughter bond. Grief for what this box would reveal. Grief for the day a gift arrived and took everything apart. Because that box, it contained more than paper. It contained the key to a truth I buried and a revenge my daughter was ready to unleash. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. The house, once our sanctuary, had become haunted by shadows I couldn't name. The letter, the box, the police visit, every moment played back in my head like an old film reel stuck on repeat. I sat at the kitchen table long after William had gone to bed, fingers wrapped around a cold mug of untouched tea. I kept staring at the letter, now sealed in an evidence bag on our hallway table. My words, my ink, my shame. How had Samantha gotten it? And why now? Why use it against me on Mother's Day? I rose, my joints stiff with age and worry, and shuffled down the hallway. The moonlight cast long beams through the windows. Everything looked untouched, familiar, yet distant. I paused near the fireplace, eyes falling on the family photo above the mantel. Us, 20 years ago. Me, William, and Samantha, arms wrapped tight around each other in front of a pumpkin patch. Back when smiles weren't forced, and intentions weren't masked by entitlement. Back when I believed we were the kind of family that wouldn't break. I reached out and tilted the photo down. I didn't want to see it anymore. By morning, I had made a decision. I would confront her. Not as her mother, not as someone desperate to keep peace, but as a woman who deserved the truth. I called her. It rang, and rang, then went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. At 9:45 a.m., her car pulled into our driveway. I watched through the curtain as Samantha stepped out wearing oversized sunglasses, a designer trench coat, and a phone glued to her ear. She didn't look like someone ashamed. She looked like someone coming to collect. She didn't knock. She walked right in. "Morning, Mom," she said brightly, tossing her bag onto the entryway table. "Where's Dad?" "Out for a walk." Her smile twitched. "Good. Then we can talk." I gestured to the kitchen. She followed me like it was any other Sunday morning, like she hadn't summoned law enforcement into my home the day before. "You got the letter," she said, eyes glittering. "I did. I thought maybe you'd burned it." "I should have." She sat across from me, crossed her legs, and leaned back as if she owned the house. "So what do you think?" "I think you crossed a line," I said softly. She scoffed. "That letter tells the truth. You should have given it to me years ago. It wasn't for you. It was about me." "No, Samantha. It was about me. About my fear. My guilt. My secrets. And you had no right to dig through the past and twist it into a weapon." Her voice sharpened. "I didn't twist anything. You're the one who wrote that you regretted having me." "I was overwhelmed," I snapped. "Alone, exhausted, afraid. I wrote that letter in a moment of darkness, and I never intended to act on it. But you felt it. Her tone was colder now. You felt like I ruined your life. Like I was a burden you never asked for. I looked away, shame blooming deep in my chest. I was 19, I said. Your father had just lost his job. I was working double shifts. I hadn't slept in days. I didn't have the words to tell anyone what I felt, so I wrote it. Then I buried it because I was horrified by myself. Samantha stood, trembling. Well, now it's unburied. And you know what? I'm glad. Maybe you'll finally understand how it feels to be unwanted. Her words sliced deeper than any confession could. I've always loved you, I whispered. But you don't know how to receive love without money attached to it. She turned sharply. Don't make this about money. Isn't it? She paused. You sent that box on Mother's Day not to honor me, but to punish me. And now you're here waiting for what, an apology? A check? What? Justice, she said. I want justice. For what? For every time I came to you needing help and you said no. I stared at her. You think saying no makes me evil? I said. That's what you learned from me. She clenched her jaw. It's what you made me feel. I closed my eyes. Then I failed. The room was quiet. But then her voice broke. Peter lost everything. We have no savings. His crypto account got wiped. The lease is up in 2 weeks. I didn't know where else to go. And there it was, beneath all her anger, all her revenge. There was desperation. And maybe shame. I wanted to reach for her. I wanted to be her mother again. But I couldn't pretend that betrayal hadn't already cut us both. Instead, I said, then come to me as my daughter, not as my blackmailer. Her lips parted, but before she could respond, a loud knock echoed from the front door. We both turned. It was William, and he wasn't alone. Behind him stood 2 women, social workers from Adult Protective Services. What is this? Samantha asked, stepping back. William's voice was hard. Jessica's going to file a protection petition against emotional coercion and elder abuse. We're documenting everything. Samantha's face turned white. You think I'm abusing her? You used stolen private writings to manipulate and shame your mother, he said. You brought police into her home uninvited. And now you're here, unannounced, demanding money again. The social worker nodded. Mrs. Hughes, would you like to speak privately? I shook my head. No, I said. She can hear this. I turned to my daughter. I will always love you, I told her. But I won't let you poison my final years. Samantha said nothing. Just before she walked out, she looked at me, not with fury anymore, but something almost like grief. I knew we had both lost something that day. That night, I sat by the window with my tea, warm this time. I didn't know if Samantha would ever forgive me, or if I'd ever trust her again. But I knew I had done the right thing. Because sometimes, love means drawing the line, even when the person on the other side is your own child. It had been 5 days since Samantha walked out of our home, her footsteps echoing like warnings on hardwood. Not a call, not a message. The silence was heavy, but it was also necessary. I kept waking up before dawn. Not from nightmares, but from clarity. Sometimes peace is loud. Sometimes peace is realizing you did the right thing, even when your heart still aches from it. I sat by the window every morning now, watching the neighborhood come alive. Children waiting for the school bus. A man jogging in a neon vest. The mail carrier dropping envelopes into boxes that weren't ticking time bombs like the one I had opened. I hadn't told William, but I'd gone into the attic again. I needed to know what else Samantha might have found. The old chest was still there, tucked beneath a moth-eaten quilt and stacks of medical records from my nursing years. I opened it slowly. Dust particles floated like ghosts. And inside, exactly where I left it, was the second letter. The one I wrote to myself. Not to Samantha. Not to William. But to the woman I used to be. I hadn't opened it in 30 years. I unfolded it with trembling hands and read, Jessica, you are not a bad mother. You are tired. You are grieving the person you used to be. You are learning how to become someone else, a woman who can hold a baby and still be herself. You are allowed to be scared, but you are not allowed to give up. Not on her. Not on you. I cried harder reading that than I did when the police arrived. I held it to my chest like a lifeline. I didn't know what the next few days would bring, but I knew this. I would not allow guilt to govern me anymore. And I would not let Samantha rewrite history to fit her narrative. Because I had my truth. And I had strength. Later that day, William walked in holding an envelope. "It's from a law firm," he said. "Addressed to you." I opened it. My breath caught. It was a petition. Samantha was filing to challenge our estate plan. She wanted early disbursement, cited parental mental decline, and financial withholding. "She's trying to say I'm unfit," I whispered. William looked like he wanted to put his fist through the wall. "She doesn't have a case," he said. "And even if she did, she's still our daughter," I said softly. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours. I thought about calling her, about meeting her halfway, about fixing it all. But then I remember the box, and the whisper, "Don't open it." No, I wouldn't reach out this time. She made her bed. Let her lie in it. 3 days later, I received a call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Diana, my younger sister. The one I stopped talking to after our mother's funeral. The one Samantha had always idolized. "Jess." Her voice was warm. "I heard what's happening. I'm so sorry." I closed my eyes. "Let me guess. She called you." "She did. But I need you to hear something." I paused. "She showed up at my house 2 weeks ago, before Mother's Day. Said she was working on a surprise and needed to know where you kept your keepsakes." I told her about the attic. I didn't think. My blood ran cold. "She planned this," I murmured. "She did. And Jess," she also said something else. "What?" She said, "This time, I'm getting what I deserve. No more begging. I'll force her if I have to." I gripped the phone tighter. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" I thought she was just upset. I didn't think she'd actually use my past against me, invite the police into my home, drag us into court. I hung up before Diana could apologize. I walked into the kitchen and stood there, silent, letting the truth settle. This wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. This was war. The next morning, I met with a lawyer, a young woman named Mallory, who looked barely old enough to drive but had the legal bite of a Doberman. "She's trying to argue undue hardship," Mallory said, flipping through the paperwork. "And she's using your letter as emotional evidence." "She stole that letter," I said. Mallory nodded. "Doesn't matter. It exists. It will be used against you. What can I do?" Mallory leaned in. "Do you want to protect your estate, or do you want to protect your daughter's feelings?" "I want to protect my soul," I said quietly. "And my sanity." She smiled. "Then we're going to respond with full opposition and file for a restraining order. No more pop-ins. No more surprise visits. And no more power over you." I signed every page with steady hands. By the weekend, the documents had been filed. Samantha received her copies. She didn't call. But Peter did. He left a voicemail. "You're ruining your own daughter's life. You think you're winning. You're just proving you were never a real mother." William deleted the message before I could hear the rest. But I didn't need to, because something had shifted in me. Something I hadn't felt since my nursing days, when I had to make fast, hard decisions during trauma. Resolve. The doorbell rang on Sunday afternoon. I opened it slowly. It was Samantha. Alone. No makeup. No coat. No ego. Just my daughter, looking like the little girl who once scraped her knee on the sidewalk and ran crying into my arms. "Mom," she said, "can we talk?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. I stepped aside. She walked in. I led her to the same kitchen table where she'd once cornered me. This time, she didn't sit across from me. She sat beside me. "I read the other letter," she whispered. "The one to yourself." I closed my eyes. I snuck back in. Before the police ever came. Before I sent the box. I found both. And I picked the one that would hurt you the most. "Why?" I asked, tears already threatening. "Because I was angry. Because I thought you'd abandoned me emotionally years ago. And because Peter said it was the only way to get your attention." My heart twisted. "Mom," she said, tears slipping down her cheeks, "I don't want your money. I want to matter to you again." I didn't respond right away. Finally, I said, "Then you have to matter to yourself first." She sobbed. I pulled her close. We sat there for a long time, broken women trying to rebuild something fragile and real. Outside, the sky turned orange. Mother's Day had come and gone. But the healing, it was just beginning. Forgiveness is a strange thing. It doesn't knock politely or announce its arrival. It slips in unnoticed, on the back of a moment. A hug, a tear, a quiet, broken apology at the kitchen table. That afternoon, as Samantha cried into my sweater, I felt something shift. Not a healing, not yet, but a loosening of the knot that had bound us in silence and resentment for years. And still, I knew better than to believe peace had fully arrived. Because peace doesn't come with unfinished lawsuits still hanging over your head. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen, watching sunlight pour through the blinds like golden thread. William sipped his coffee, eyes on the front page of the paper, as if the last week hadn't fractured our world. "She came," I said. He lowered the paper. "What?" "Samantha. Yesterday. She came alone." His brow furrowed. "And," she cried, apologized, said she didn't want the money after all. William leaned back slowly, suspicion already written on his face. "You don't believe her," I said quietly. "I believe she wants to mean it," he said. "But I also believe Peter still has her ear." He wasn't wrong. Samantha had always been toward whoever spoke the loudest, and Peter, he practically shouted his manipulations through every smile. Still, I wanted to believe that visit had been real. That maybe, just maybe, my daughter still existed under the layers of entitlement and grief. But then, 2 days later, the letter arrived. Another envelope, this one from a private investigator. William found it in the mailbox. "What is this?" I asked, opening it with a letter opener. "It's addressed to Jessica M. Hughes, subject of preliminary inquiry." William read over my shoulder. The report was brief. Someone had hired a PI to investigate my finances, my medical history, my capacity. "Samantha," William muttered. The betrayal hit me like a blow to the chest. She had come back not to reconcile, but to soften me up, to get close enough to finish what she started. "She said she didn't want the money," I whispered, voice cracking. "She lied." I felt the blood drain from my face. That night I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I didn't speak. I stared out the window, watching headlights glide silently down our street, wondering if one of them was hers. Waiting, watching, calculating. 2 days later, I called Diana again. "Can you come by?" I asked. "I need you to see something." She arrived just after noon. Same gentle smile. Same oversized sunglasses. Always trying to look casual while carrying other people's secrets. I handed her the PI report. Her smile faded. "She went this far." I nodded. "She said she wanted justice," I said. "But she's trying to build a case to prove I'm mentally unfit." Diana looked devastated. I should have never told her about the attic. I didn't know. "It's not your fault," I said. "It's mine, for raising a daughter who believes love is transactional." There was silence. Then, for the first time in years, Diana took my hand. "We can still fix this," she said. "You don't have to go through this alone." And for once, I believed her. The following week, I had my lawyer send Samantha an offer, drop the estate challenge, and we'd forgive everything. No restraining orders. No legal fees. Just peace. I didn't expect her to say yes. But she did. Within 24 hours, she signed the withdrawal paperwork. No note. No thank you. No explanation. William didn't trust it. "This is too easy," he said. But I clung to hope like a lifeline. Maybe she was ready to be my daughter again. Then came the news. Mallory, our lawyer, called in the middle of dinner. "I don't want to alarm you," she said, "but something came across my desk that you need to see." She emailed me a photo. It was a flyer. Women's Wellness Seminar. Inheritance Trauma and Legal Strategies. Guest speaker, Samantha Hughes, family finance consultant. I nearly dropped the phone. She had turned our story into a platform. "She's building a brand," Mallory said. "Using your case as a talking point. Sharing your breakdowns as her rise to power origin story." William slammed his fork onto his plate. "That's it. We go public. We tell our side." But I shook my head. No, not yet. Because I wasn't ready to fight fire with fire. I wanted something colder. Something final. The next morning, I went to the courthouse. Not to file a new claim, but to amend our will. We changed everything. If Samantha attempted to contest the estate again, she would receive $1 and be legally removed from all further inheritance. We added safeguards. We added oversight. We left everything to a trust, one that would benefit causes I believed in, not people who manipulated me. And we left one final letter, to be opened only after our deaths. Inside, I told the whole story, from the attic to the police visit, from the false apology to the investigator. Every word, every lie, every betrayal. And I ended it with this. Samantha, if you're reading this, then you outlived me. That means you now have something more valuable than money, time. You squandered your trust with us. But perhaps in time, you can earn it somewhere else. You were loved. You were forgiven. But you were not entitled to everything simply because you existed. I signed it with my full name. No, Mom. Not anymore. It's been 3 weeks since she backed off. I haven't heard from her. But last night, I checked her social media. She's traveling now. Bali, Morocco, Rome, posting self-help quotes and sipping champagne with captions like, "Healing begins when you leave toxic people behind." The irony stings. But I also feel something else now. Freedom. Not from my daughter, but from the lie that I owed her everything. I gave her life. I gave her love. She gave me the box. And in a twisted way, it gave me myself back. I always thought endings came with a bang. A final word. A slammed door. But sometimes they don't come at all. They just fade. Like the light on Samantha's social media photos. Each one posted like a curated scrapbook of a woman who claimed healing but refused to confront what she broke. She hadn't spoken to me in over a month, and I hadn't reached out. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that caring didn't have to mean chasing. I was done chasing people who treated my love like a bank account. Still, grief lingered. The grief of a mother who had given her daughter everything she could. Nurture, patience, a childhood free of hunger, and got silence in return. It was a Thursday when the doorbell rang again. Not a cop, not a lawyer. It was Diana. She stood there with 2 paper bags and a tight smile. "Lunch?" she asked. We ate in silence at first, turkey sandwiches and lukewarm tea. Finally, I broke the quiet. I saw Samantha's Bali photos. Diana nodded, chewing. She's posting more now than she ever did when we were on speaking terms. "She's trying to convince the world she's fine," Diana said. "But I don't think she is." I raised an eyebrow. "She called me again," Diana admitted. "Not to gossip. Just lost. She doesn't know who she is without drama. Or entitlement. She made her choices." "Yes," Diana said gently. "But so did you. And now you're finally free of it." I looked out the window at our quiet street. Free. The word still felt new. Like shoes not broken in yet. "She asked if I thought you'd ever speak to her again," Diana added. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I stood and poured fresh tea. When I sat back down, I said, "If Samantha ever learns what love without leverage feels like, then maybe. But not while she's still making a brand off my pain." The next twist came when I least expected it. Mallory, our lawyer, called again. "You're not going to believe this," she said. My heart lurched. "What now?" "She's filed an LLC. Your daughter. Under the name Healed by Hurt. She's offering grief and generational trauma coaching." I sat down slowly. "Please tell me she isn't using our story." "She already is. There's a podcast. Episode 1 just dropped." I couldn't breathe for a moment. "You want me to listen to it?" Mallory offered. "No," I whispered. "I'll do it myself." I waited until William fell asleep that night. I lit a candle, sat on the living room couch, and opened her website. There it was, Healed by Hurt, the podcast. Episode 1. The Mother Who Never Chose Me. I hit play. Her voice filled the room. So many daughters grow up believing their mothers love them unconditionally. I didn't. I grew up in a house where warmth came with a price tag and affection was reserved for special occasions. Today, I want to talk about inherited silence, about letters that change everything. My fingers clenched. She never used our names, but the details were unmistakable. The attic, the letter, the police visit. She was rewriting the story, turning herself into the abandoned one. The victim, the phoenix. She never mentioned why the letter was written, or the betrayal, or the lawsuit. Just pain, and how she rose from it. And yet, a part of me understood. She was still trying to find meaning in a world that didn't hand her any, even if it meant burning me for warmth. 2 weeks later, I received a handwritten card in the mail. No return address. Just my name and familiar, looping script. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sentence. I'm sorry I weaponized your worst moment. I thought it would make me feel powerful. It didn't. No demands. No money requests. No explanations. Just a small admission. I stared at it for a long time, then placed it in the drawer where I kept the other letters. The ones I had written. The ones I should have destroyed. For the first time in months, I didn't cry. Then, something unexpected happened. A call came, not from Samantha, but from a woman named Ava. She sounded young. Nervous. I know this is strange, she said, but I listened to your daughter's podcast, and I recognized your name from an old newsletter. You were a nurse, right? At Mercy General. I was. My mother was one of your patients. You sat with her the night before she passed. You brushed her hair and played her music. She told me about you. I just wanted to say thank you. You made a difference. My throat tightened. All these years later, someone still remembered. I'm sorry about your daughter, Ava added gently. But you're not the woman she's describing. I know that. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet and smiled. Samantha had tried to strip me down to my mistakes, but the world hadn't forgotten who I was, and neither had I. A few days later, Diana came by again. We sat on the porch, drinking iced tea and watching the wind stir the trees. I've been thinking, I said. Maybe I'll write something. Not to compete, just to tell the truth. Diana nodded. You should. Do you think anyone would listen? She looked at me. You raised a woman who convinced the internet she's a trauma guru. I think you can tell your side better than anyone. We laughed. It was the first real laugh in weeks. And so I did. I started with a single post. Motherhood is not sainthood. It is not martyrdom. It is not a guarantee of grace. It is a gamble, on love, on time, on patience. I wrote a letter 30 years ago, not because I didn't love my daughter, but because I forgot how to love myself. She found it, and she used it, but I'm still here. And this time, I'm writing to the woman I am, not the one I feared I was. Within hours, the post had hundreds of likes, and dozens of comments, from other women, other mothers, each one with a story, each one holding a box of their own. Some unopened, some exploded, all of them healing. Just like me, I never thought healing would feel so quiet. No grand reunion, no dramatic apology in the rain, no climactic scene where mother and daughter collapse into each other's arms with sobs and forgiveness. Just a few handwritten words, just a little piece, and for the first time in a long while it was enough. The morning sun spilled through my curtains like honey, gentle and golden. I sat up, stretched, and listened to the birds outside the window. It was Mother's Day again, exactly 1 year since the box arrived. Since the letter, since the whisper, since everything changed. I made myself tea and opened the back door to let in the breeze. The garden was blooming, wild roses, forget-me-nots, and peonies spilling into one another like they couldn't decide where one ended and the other began. It reminded me of family. Beautiful, chaotic, sometimes invasive, but still growing. William walked in, freshly shaved, holding a small gift bag. "Happy Mother's Day," he said with a kiss to my cheek. I smiled. "You remembered?" He rolled his eyes playfully. "I'm not Peter." We laughed. Inside the bag was a book of poetry, a lavender candle, and a small card that read simply, "To the strongest woman I know." It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. But it was enough. Later, Diana arrived with lemon tarts and a hug that lasted a beat too long. We set the table outside, poured iced tea, and talked about everything but Samantha. Because we didn't need to fill the space she left behind. We'd made room for something else. Ourselves. That afternoon, I logged into my email and opened my inbox. Among the newsletters and appointment reminders was one message that stopped my breath. Subject: a cup of tea, if you're willing. From Samantha.hughes@healbyher.org. I stared at it for several long seconds. Then I clicked. Asterisk: Hi Mom. I know I don't deserve this space. I know I forfeited it a dozen times over. But I saw your writing. Your post about motherhood. I read it 3 times. I realized something. I've spent my whole adult life trying to get the world to believe I was hurt. Because deep down, I needed someone to witness it. But I weaponized it instead. I think you were doing the same when you wrote that letter in the attic. Maybe we're not so different. Maybe we were both just trying to survive the weight of roles that didn't come with instruction manuals. If you're ever willing, I'd like to make you tea this time. Just the 2 of us. No scripts. No defense. No expectations. I'll understand if you say no. **. I leaned back in my chair, the wind playing with the hem of my blouse. Forgiveness doesn't knock. It whispers. Sometimes it's a box. Sometimes it's an email. Sometimes it's simply time. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I printed the email and folded it neatly, placing it inside a new envelope. I walked to the garden and tucked it between the pages of the poetry book William had given me. I wanted it near the things that reminded me I was still growing. Because even when a garden is cut down, even when roots rot and leaves fall, there is always the possibility of something new. Even if it doesn't look like what you planted. 2 days later, I emailed her back. *Samantha, I accept your invitation. I don't know what version of you will show up, and I can't promise the version of me you remember will be the one at the table. But I believe in women who rise. I believe in you. Let's have that tea. Mom*. 1 week later, we met at a little garden cafe. She wore a linen dress and no makeup. I wore the silver brooch she gave me in 5th grade, the one with a missing stone I never replaced. There were no tears. There were no accusations. Just tea. And 2 women learning to look at each other without old stories in the way. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. I froze for a second. She noticed. "This one's safe," she said with a sheepish smile. Inside was a handmade ceramic mug. Pale blue. A cracked glaze. It read, "Begin again." I held it with both hands. "Thank you," I whispered. We sipped in silence. And for the first time in a very long time, we didn't need to say everything. They say revenge stories end with someone losing. But this one didn't. Because I didn't take Samantha down. I didn't ruin her business or expose her podcast or retaliate with my own tell-all. I didn't erase her. I reclaimed me. And that was enough. Sometimes revenge looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like distance. And sometimes, when the time is right, it looks like an open door, and a seat at the table, and a mother choosing peace without apology. This was that story. Thanks for being here. Stay strong. Stay steady. And remember, you're allowed to begin again. Becky.